This program is designed to provide general information with regards to the subject matters covered. This information is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, sponsors, or station are engaged in rendering any specific and personal, medical, financial, legal, counseling, professional service, or any advice. You should seek the services of competent professionals before applying or trying any suggested ideas.
Good morning, True Seekers and True Crime Junkies. Welcome back to another episode of Hit the Road Jack, Finding the Zodiac. We are back from Aftershock. Obviously, we had a pre-record last week, and this week we are live. I wanted to share some YouTube videos while we're waiting for some of our guests to appear. I had one from a Midnight Ventures. And it looks like it was quite an old one, and I've probably gone over this before, but I still find that people are reporting issues and problems with being able to access videos or even getting them in order or notifications to them. And so I wanted to reread this particular comment, and it says, by Midnight Ventures, this channel is grossly underrated. YouTube and subs are both at fault. Sure, this is content everybody has seen before, but it is still entertaining to watch if you haven't seen it lately and are interested in the Zodiac case. YouTube really treats small channels like trash, and subs, and I'm assuming they mean subscribers, are too lazy or inconsiderate to hit the like button. So with everybody out there that is a subscriber to this, please do hit that like button, share or, introduce other people on your channel to it and get this thing rolling so many more people actually have an opportunity to see the evidence for Jack Terrence being the Zodiac killer. Another person at More K 1967 says, oh my gosh, why did I not ever know about this guy? The composites look like him. I am leaning toward it being this guy. And I think I've said this a million times when we're looking at some of these false suspects that are put forth just to kind of confuse the situation or make it a little more complicated for us to come to the right conclusion as to who should be the suspect that's being investigated, is that oftentimes these fake suspects do not look anything like this composite. And these individuals are doing anything they can to obviously take away from or disregard the composite. But I do like to remind people that the main and the most prominent composite in this particular case was a sighting that was given by a police officer who had actually ran into the Zodiac killer in the Presidio in San Francisco after Paul Stein's murder. So our next one, which is more current, is Cutie Pie HH3GG. And she said, I'm going to guess it's a she, sorry if you're not, says, as always, the police are useless. And I responded that I think there's dirty people in every aspect of life, and that includes law enforcement, unfortunately, should not take away from those that are good, are indeed good. Now, we know that I've been covering a wrongful conviction case for murder with Peter Wilson, and we just did an episode on Dean the Pipe Man Piper's podcast last week, where we kind of covered all of the information up to date on that wrongful conviction. We're looking to obtain a writ of habeas corpus because indeed the cop was bad and he framed basically Mr. Wilson by planting his blood at the scene of the crime. And I just recently found out that it was literally 2 drops of blood that were splashed at the scene that got him convicted. And I find that to be a little bit odd, because if you're going to drop 2 drops of blood, that would indicate that you had to cut deep enough to create a drop to begin with. And so where's the rest of the blood? I mean, the man commits a horrible murder. The victim looks like she's been raped because she's found with semen and sperm between her legs. There are all these things that if 2 drops of blood had been dropped, there should have been much more found at the crime scene. And that kind of takes me back to Dexter. And I know that's one of Dean's favorite shows. One of my favorite shows is Dexter and the Blood Spatter Expert. if they had had this type of science back in 1996, I don't think that Mr. Wilson would be sitting in jail right now, because 2 drops of blood would not have sufficed. This type of a gruesome scene where the victim had been beaten about the head, multiple lacerations, and then this gigantic 4x8x12 beam laid across her body. I just think that 2 drops of blood is surely not sufficient to indicate that Mr. Wilson was the person who was responsible for that crime. Anyway, so moving on. Cutie Pie also says, when I said that, there are people that are good, she says, unfortunately, the good police or law enforcement are far outnumbered by the bad ones, and worse still, they stay silent in their sworn blue cult mentality, therefore enabling the bad apples to reign. We watch cop shows on TV and we see them solve every case with absolute commitment for justice, but in reality, they bungle most cases that go unsolved due to incompetence, corruption, and prejudice. After watching your Dennis Kaufman video, I felt so sorry for him, because he tried countless times to reach out to the police, FBI, after giving them all the evidence, and still they did nothing. And I absolutely do agree with her. I'm not going to say they did nothing. There was this placating that was occurring with Dennis, where they would make it look or appear as though they were attempting to do something when really they were just round filing it. And the answers that came back from any evidence he turned in always left him longing for more information from the police, because they weren't really giving any accurate results on what they were finding. If I had to list out the things that Dennis has actually, let's see. No, this one keeps bouncing my email saying it was blocked by Yahoo. Is she on a Yahoo? Let me double check. I sent him 2 emails. Okay. I'm trying to get my guest here on the show today, guys. Bear with me. All right, let me see if I can actually get it off to her. We'll see what happens here. Forward. And send. Let's see what happens. All right, so back to this. We know that in the process of Dennis trying to show law enforcement Jack Terrence as a possible suspect for the Zodiac, he has turned over things such as Eaton bond paper, which was used by the Zodiac for his communications. He has turned over palm prints, fingerprints, DNA on envelopes from letters that Jack has written. He has turned over the hood, which he found in a PA system that Jack had coveted for many, many years. He has turned over pretty much just about. Oh, what am I getting? Some background noise? There she is. I'm going to welcome Lindsay McBrayer to the show. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm glad we finally got that. All right. So I'm very interested in this case you just introduced me to this morning, because we are actually in 1996 right now, and we're about to find out where Jack was during June of 1996. So hopefully that answers some of your questions.
Yes, I was actually excited, and then when I couldn't get on, I was like, oh my gosh, no.
Right at the last minute.
Yeah.
I was just kind of covering some of these messages from individuals and their, thoughts and feelings on law enforcement not doing their job. And Cutie Pie seems to, I'm not saying she's wrong, because obviously my response, you can see here to the right. I'm not going to bother reading it, but Tom Dixon was a link analysis detective, one of the first link analysis detectives, when they first discovered that people had link analysis blindness, and that was due to proximity or time. So they wouldn't couple or put these potential crimes together as it being one person, because they were either in another state or they were at a different time frame. And for some reason, cops believed back then that if you were a killer, I guess, you maintained one place of residence, you only killed around there, and you only killed for a period of time, and then you quit and went away and did something else.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of hilarious. But So Tom Dixon, being a link analysis detective for San Francisco PD, had hired his friend, we've talked about this, Lloyd Cunningham, to protect his stepdaughter in a forged will case. And of course, they did win the case, but that was that good old boy system that she's talking about, the boys in blue protecting each other. And then we have we have a judge on the case. Now, this was the estate of Richard Scagliola. And the judge on this case literally said right in open court, you guys remember we need to be out of here by 4:30 p.m. because we have tickets to the game. And when he meant we, he was talking about himself, the opposing counsel to this case, and Lloyd Cunningham, the document examiner. So I was literally just beside myself listening to that. And I decided at that point that I was not going to continue on to law school, even after having taken a legal assisting degree and taking the LSAT and preparing myself for something that I thought was going to be really good. Everybody always said I was a great arguer and that I should be an attorney, but after seeing the way the system works, I just figured it probably wasn't for me. I would be in contempt and I would be in jail, basically. All right, so let's move on from these particular... Are you still with us, Lindsay? Oh, no. What has happened?
There you are.
There you are. There you are. So Cutie Pie goes on to say, it's interesting you touched on 9/11. Have you heard of the dancing Israelis? I'm not sure what that means, and I'm going to have to do some... Do you know what that is?
I've heard that phrase somewhere. It's probably in my notes.
I feel like I've heard of it, but I'm really not quite sure.
I can't pinpoint it right this second.
Do I just research? Oh, yeah, and I asked if I just researched dancing Israelis, and I didn't really get any response back from that yet. But I will research it. I will check it out. I don't know if that's them ultimately attempting to push this back on a foreign faction that has done these events in 9/11. I know that I focus on 9/11's not the actual date of 9/11.
Oh, that's where it comes from.
What?
Yes. So they do have involvement in the involvement that I have found is their spy system, in which that we used during that time, the United States used, for particularly that what I found, it was the telephone. They could track and they could tap into your home telephones, and that's the spy system that they were running at the time.
Well, that kind of then makes sense a little bit with, the mob always saying, don't call me from your phone. Go use a payphone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So if they're tapping you. So that's what really the dancing Israelis is just that particular method of tracking.
I think it's the dancing part. That word would there's different aspects of it. That was just one that I found that is documented in the 911 files. So that of their spy system that we were contracted with them to use.
Oh, okay.
So that just gives them the opportunity to do whatever else that they need to orchestrate something.
Right. Well, if they've got the in on your house, and maybe that's why nobody wants to use a home phone anymore, right?
Yeah.
You've got WhatsApp, and WhatsApp was then bought by Facebook, so it's not private anymore. And then they've moved on to a system called Signal, which I personally use Signal. Like the second I heard that Facebook was buying WhatsApp, I knew it was no longer going to be available. It was no longer going to be unmonitored, I guess.
Be careful about Signal too, because as soon as Signal came out, I did the same exact thing. Me and my mom would message on there actually about different things that we would discover and investigate. And then she suddenly one day sent me something that says, well, nope, somebody has access to this too, so we're getting off of this.
Really?
Yeah, I can't remember what she said, but it was something. This was months and months back. So because we had been using it for over like a year at that point. And she was like, no, I'm deleting the app. And I was like, okay. So, but it was some significant company. I can't place the company name right off the top of my head, but yeah, I'll have to send it to you.
Okay, well, you weren't the only one having problems. Evidently, for some reason, your email was bouncing back from Juan. And so now he says that Nolan's was bouncing back too and didn't receive his either. So
Really?
so I just sent Nolan his.
I got
It says,
yours immediately right when you sent it.
yeah, well, and I sent mine from Gmail. I don't know which system Juan was using, but he said that this one keeps bouncing my emails saying it was blocked by Yahoo. That's
That is
weird.
so. I've never had a problem with the Yahoo. I'm more suspicious of Gmail than Yahoo.
Right? Yeah, I've not
Yeah.
really had any issues with the blocking of things. Yeah, and I actually have with people with Gmail accounts. Sometimes when I'm doing business and attempting to send
Yeah,
them
me too.
things, yeah, I get kickbacks, or they're just not receiving it. It's not going into spam. They don't see it at all. So,
Yeah.
well, we'll see what we can do about that. It's only happening with Yahoo emails. Very weird. I'm a Yahoo email, and you sent it to me. Oh no, actually, you sent it to Zodiac Gmail. So nope, I'm wrong. He sent mine to Gmail. Well, then I had this other guy at Video Buster Reel 612 says, "Yikes! By the way, I'm LeBron." What the f does that mean?
I don't know.
I'm LeBron, like LeBron James, like. I highly doubt he's over here.
That's another rabbit hole on him. So.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah.
We love rabbit holes. I guess we live for rabbit holes.
I get trapped into them.
Well, I just kind of, at the end of this, I was having this thought where I wanted to just kind of like lay it out there. We're in 1996. We're, climbing into what's going to be happening this particular year. You meant that if Jock is Zodiac, then he's LeBron. He's being sarcastic. I love you, Juan. All right.
Yeah, that's what I figured. But if you knew the background behind LeBron, then you would get it, I guess.
Well, this person wants to be LeBron pretty badly because I'm fairly sure Jack is the Zodiac. But anyways, he might want to spend a little more time than on the single episode that he watched. If you haven't watched everything and all the evidence that I've put out here, then you really are kind of clueless. So this is just a couple of the mentalities that I wanted to like run past real quick for all of those that haven't completely watched all the episodes and known what's gone on with Jack throughout the years. My thoughts: we had 3 calls to Dolores Reynolds, indicated that she was petrified of Jack and he tried to kill or threatened to kill her on more than one occasion. And Doris Reynolds was one of Jack's wives, and that he killed the family animals. Dennis talks about Jack killing the neighbor's dogs. Nora put in her diary that Flova's friend Nell was lucky to have not answered her door when they showed up because Jack brought his shotgun to a little old lady's house.
Yeah.
Craziness. Nora writes in her diary that Jack claimed to have accidentally killed a sickly kitten that jumped up into the door jamb of a Chevy Suburban. And we're talking a sickly little kitten of all of 6-8 weeks old. This cat did not jump up into the door jamb of no Chevy Suburban. Yeah. I think Jack put it there and closed that door on that cat. I would put money on it.
Well, and Dennis, if you have that willpower to kill an animal, then that willpower is going to be always there to kill anything.
Anything, yeah,
including a human.
You have no
because I mean, my husband has he gets mad at one of our cats or something, and one day you're gonna find that cat gone, and just making at the time angry statements, but he would never do that. He kisses the cat all over its face, you know what I'm saying? But it's like that instant where you break that barrier in between, then you have reached a barrier that is unstoppable in killing anything,
Yeah, no concern or respect for life whatsoever.
Yeah, it's like you just lose that total that emotion totally. It's gone.
Right. Well, Dennis goes on to say that Nora was afraid of Jack and thought he was trying to kill her in the end days, that she was not taking her medication that Jack tried to give her after the amputation of her leg. She was afraid that Jack was trying to poison her. Dennis states that after the death of his mother, he went to clean out her belongings and found that pile of meds she had hid under a false plate under the bed. That's how scared she was of Jack. And then he realized how scared she was, and she hadn't been taking the meds that were necessary for her to actually survive with the disease and disorder she had going on. I know that Gary believes that Nora died in the hospital due to her complications with diabetes, but Dennis told me of a heinous story where a fake call of terrorism was called in on Dennis at the hospital, which prevented him from entering the hospital to see his mother in the final days, and that she ultimately succumbed to death with only Jack in the room with her. So somewhere between Dennis and Gary is the truth. But Jack is a dastardly person, and he thinks and acts in ways that are just incomprehensible for a good human being. Oh, is my clicker? Where's my clicker going? Come on now. You open back up and you go here. All right, there we go. All right, so we're at March 5th of 1996, so we'll be climbing into your June month here any second. This murder, I only kept it in here because of the coincidence between who it was. I do not believe at all that Jack had any responsibility for this. It was actually discovered that there was a DNA match, and it went back to a guy named Smith. Anyways, it was March 5th of 1996. 13-year-old Crystal Jean Baker at a convenience store in Texas City was strangled and beaten, sexually assaulted, killed by a ligature strangulation. She was Caucasian, blonde with dark eyes. Her face had been badly beaten. I mean, who beats a 13-year-old? It blows my mind. At highways I-45, Highway 3, and Highway 146, there's approximately 25 miles, I believe, between where she was and where she was found, and north of Texas City under the Trinity River Bridge. Now, Norma Jean Baker was Crystal's great aunt. So that's Marilyn Monroe, basically. And that's why I left this one in here. Like, what were the chances that Marilyn Monroe's great niece would have then suffered a fate somewhat similar to what Marilyn Monroe had gone through, or at least I believe that she had gone through.
That is weird.
Right? Very, very crazy.
So I was thinking at first this was, there's a series in Texas. There's like a couple other ones in Texas of a convenience store woman. And I think only one of them, this one, I don't know if I've came across this one or not, but I didn't, if it is this one, then I didn't realize she was 13. I was thinking that she was older, but she wasn't working there. She was just taken.
Yeah, evidently.
Okay.
It's another one of those convenience store, abductions.
Yeah.
And I know that in Tim Miller's finale letter, there is discussion of others that were killing during this time too. So that makes complete sense that we have similar or, near similar type circumstances going on, because this is a little bit different. Although I think that the reason why I brought it in is that killed by ligature strangulation, because we're getting ready to climb into Jon Benet Ramsey. So could this person have been the, perpetrator of that crime? Was it Jack, or, was Jack just responsible for writing the letter in this group of criminals? So that brings us into March 29th of 1996. I show that Jack has insurance coverage for an 82 Civic, an 82 Accord, and an 87 Chevy Suburban. The address is now in his name at Dale, Texas. So even though Dale, Texas was technically his mother's address, we start to see all of the bills that Jack is turning over. So in answer to your question, where was Jack in June of 1996? He was in Texas. So I would have liked to have an opportunity
I
to
thought Yeah, I'm still looking into that one too that I sent you. Just found it randomly today. It was like in my algorithm, like of a new of her trial being like possibly overturned because they were wrongfully convicted. So I'm gonna finish up like researching it, and then you can do the same, and then we can put it together maybe.
Well, and I know at this particular point in time, Jack has gone back to take care of Mom. And I believe that Nora went to Washington because she did not get along with Nora whatsoever. So there's a possibility that during this time frame that Jack is there with nothing more than to do than, and I want to say take care of his mother, but if you notice over here to the right, here's a Nesbitt nursing home receipt. So Jack, and he's calling himself John. So let's look at this. He calls himself Jack Terrence on the, I think this is a cable bill. Beginning payments. And yes, so on the cable bill, he calls himself Jack Terrence. At the nursing home, he calls himself John Terrence.
Yeah.
AARP, he calls himself John Terrence. So we're going to see this flipping back and forth between these names, either J.W. Barnett, Jack Terrence, John Terrence, you name it, all of the different variations that he's used throughout the years, he seems to be using in 1996, as if to say he doesn't even know who he is. I mean, how many
Yeah.
different ways are you going to spell your name for people? Adopt it and
And I'll
be it.
tell you, and just for the audience so they know, this is a number one tactic of the CIA. This is what they do. They use these aliases to get through to these places and to these people under the radar, so no one knows and they can never link them. Because, and then it also at the same time causes confusion when people are trying to figure out things, because they'll change the spelling, they'll add a letter, they'll add an initial, they'll change the whole name around. Instead of Jack Terrence, it could be Terrence Jack, just for an example. Like they do this, and that is a tactic of the CIA. So that just shows to show you that he hadn't learned this from somewhere.
Well, and I remember when we were talking with Terry B in regards to his name. So Lisa Marie Self being Jack's first wife, and the inability.
Muffled.
What's that?
Oh, there. It's clear now.
Okay, yeah, you were kind of garbled there in the end too. But that Lisa Marie Self, or Letha Marie Self, the last name Self being a null or a void in the system. So when you ran that name, you weren't really going to come up with anything because it keyed into too many different things rather than a person. And I think it was just the last name Self itself that he was talking about. But then in Jack's case, because he was J.W. Terrence, again, you have that null or that void in being able to locate who he is or settle in on one person, because J.W. Terrence truly is his name, but he's not going by that. He's going by John, or he's going by Jack, or he's, whatever identification he's setting up for himself through all these different companies, which we would call being on the grid. Jack is technically not on the grid because nothing is the same between what you see from one bill to the next, or from one item to the next. So if Flova is in a nursing home, then Jack technically isn't being responsible for anything. He's got nothing but free time on his hands because he's not having to take care of his mother, as he had indicated that he was going to do. I have to go back to take care of Mom. She's in a nursing home.
Well, and then another character we've just talked about before also used the same tactic many times, which is John Walsh. No one knows, but it's John Edward Walsh Jr. No one knows that he's a junior. You don't ever see that. I had to dig to find that, and verified it through Megan, his daughter, that he definitely in fact is a junior, but he hates to go put junior, apparently she said, on the end of his last name. Never uses his middle name or initial. It's always just John Walsh, and that's it. And he hates for anybody to put anything added to it, which is just crazy to me.
Right? Well, and I remember my children's father was a junior. He was a second, actually. And so the credit reporting agencies would take three commonalities, whether it's name, social security, your address, relations to somebody else. And if three of these items could be met, then they smacked your information together. So it literally said on his credit report that he was married to his mother with 3 children at the age of 22. Because his name was, so it makes it literally impossible to actually separate out individuals.
Impossible, yeah.
And that went on for years and years. All right, so we do see here that he is still currently paying the bills for Flova at the house, which is the energy bill and the water supply. He is also paying his own bill for cable. So obviously when he got there, he had to change it out of Veazey's name, which I didn't bring up. He had Hubert L. Veazey Jr., there's another junior, was listed on this cable bill until March 1st of 96. And then on April 1st of 96, we see it in Jack's name. So that must have been around the time that he moved back to Texas to take care of Mom. And we just talked about those bills. So then on May of 1996, we show calls to Lacey, Washington. This is where Mary and Rick live, and Mary is Nora's daughter. So when the information showed that Jack went back to Texas while sending Nora off to Washington, we now see the phone bills and we see the phone calls to Lacey Washington, which would likely be the phone number for Mary and Rick. I had thought at some point, or during this point, there was a possibility that they were in Boulder, Colorado. But over my research this last week, I was able to discover that, nope, we definitely have Mary and Rick still in Washington. So what are all these phone calls to Boulder, Colorado during this year? You guys are about to watch and see, and we're going to discuss those phone numbers. But so far, we can see a whole lot of phone calls to Roseville, California. I'm going to assume that that's Dennis. To Seguin, Texas. I'm not quite sure who he's going to be calling in Texas, since he's in Texas, unless maybe that is the nursing home where mom is. I'm not sure.
What location was it?
What? Seguin, Texas.
Okay,
So he
I'm
actually
gonna make a note of that.
He actually, and maybe he's calling around for a place to live, because that's another thing that I noticed. Over here on this bill, he's showing the Route 1 box 179J1 in Dale, Texas. So my presumption is that when he went back to Texas, he was back at mom's house. And we saw that the cable bill was in fact for the Route 1 box in Dale, Texas. Now, as of May 1996, we have Southwestern Bell bills that go to 800 Nelda Street, Lot 20, Seguin, Texas. So Jack didn't move back to mom's house. Jack moved into his own place, and maybe these phone calls that are occurring on this particular bill are him looking for a place to live, or moving into the new place. Now, also take notice to the misspelling of the last name, Jack Terrence, with an E. Now, it is completely possible that people make this mistake, and I do see in Jack's writing beneath here saying, okay, name change, no call forward, non-listed. So he doesn't want his number listed. I thought, oh, that's interesting. Why?
Yeah.
What do you have going on, Jack? You're not like some, I don't know. He's on disability, or at least he's attempting to get his disability. He's not currently working. It's not like he's some highfalutin person that needs to hide from the public, but he is definitely showing his true colors with wanting to be incognito. And again, he's at a completely different address than we thought he had gone to, even though he put the cable bill in Dale, Texas in his name.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's another phone bill on 5/8 of 1996 where he's using J.W. Barnett. Now, Barnett is Flova's last name, his mother's maiden name. And J.W. Barnett, obviously, when I looked up his, it would have been his great-grandfather, because we know his dad had died. His great-grandfather, because it would have been Flova's father, would have been a J.W. Barnett. However, J.W. Barnett at the time of this bill would have been like a whopping 106 years old, I believe, is what I looked up, because based on birthday pictures and telling me his age at that point in time suggests that this man is not alive, and that Jack is literally using the Dale, Texas address. So he's using multiple addresses at the same exact time. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. Let's see. So this is June 10th of 1996, 3 calls that are made to Brighton, Colorado. And this number is a 303-637-6192. I had seen another, let's see if I can see. I had seen another Colorado number, which I thought might have been the atomic clock for time. Like, right? There used to be this number, popcorn, that you'd call, right? But I thought popcorn was kind of a set number, and it's based off of the keys, the alphabet keys on the phone for the number popcorn. But I was always under the
kind of like when you're dialing for information.
Yeah, when you used to hit 411 and get information, you would dial this number and it was popcorn. So the 7 digits were popcorn, and it would take you directly to the time. So if your power had gone out and you needed to reset your clocks, we didn't have cell phones back in these days. We had a number that we called to get the accurate time so that we could reset all of our clocks. So at first I thought, well, maybe he's calling because of that, but we're seeing phone calls into Colorado, and I don't know who he could possibly be calling at this point. I had originally thought that it had been Mary and Rick, but we see that he's still calling Lacey Washington, and that's where they lived. So yeah, it's a bit different, whatever's going on here.
Well, and let me just tell you this really crazy fact in between this, because since this is like a couple months before, the husband of this woman that was people believe were wrongfully convicted in this certain case, and I'm not going to go into whole detail, but her husband was actually had his own business with an electronic industry, which included circuit boards.
Uh-huh. That's right up
Yeah,
Jack's alley.
exactly. So,
Yeah. Well, and I wanted to just kind of briefly read so people know what it is that you were talking about. You said on June 6th of 1996, Damon and Devon Routier were murdered in the suburban Texas town of Rolette. Their mom, Darlie, is it Darlie or Darlene?
Darlie.
Darlie Routier was found guilty and sentenced to death a year later, but has maintained her innocence ever since. It says, I think I have another case I have found in Texas in 1996 where, and now, so this one's a separate case from the Routier?
No, that's a Rudier. I
Okay.
probably just worded it crazy.
Says number one, a woman was, I believe, possibly wrongfully convicted of murdering her children and almost killing herself by slicing her own throat. But the wound to the neck was severely cut, almost fatal, and some experts say she couldn't have inflicted her own neck wound, let alone with her own bruises on her arms from fighting off an intruder if there was one. Number two, another thing is there was no other evidence left in the house from another suspect. And number three, the husband had a self-made career with his own electronics company. No murder weapon was brought to the scene, only a kitchen knife used from the home kitchen. So basically, if I take from that, she has bruises on her forearm, you're saying?
Oh yeah, it's from and whenever I say not just the like people are just probably picturing a couple little bruises like you get when you fall. It was from like her wrist all the way to her shoulder, like this entire arm. I don't know if you can see my arm, but
Yeah.
this entire arm, in the inside of it was completely almost black. It was so bruised, almost like people would they described it as like it looked like her arms had been twisted like this, and she was fighting it like and caught
Gotcha.
and yeah.
I think it's pretty
So,
impossible to cut your own throat. I mean, I don't imagine that too many people could do something like that.
and she had to have surgery to because that there's a piece of muscle that this thin piece. It looks kind of like if you. I always thought of it when I was in nursing as like I always called it the seat belt. So it's like a seat. It looks like a seat belt like this, and it goes like right here, and it actually covers that artery. But before that, it's like a little piece of slither of another piece that goes over that artery, and then that seat belt muscle goes over it. It had completely went through that muscle piece covering that artery and then it got almost to the slither of that piece that covers that artery, and luckily if it would have went through that little slither of piece under that little seatbelt muscle, then she would have been dead. But
Right.
they had to go in and actually sew up that muscle piece back together and everything. So I mean, I don't know how she would have been able to do that.
Especially a female. I mean, when I think about the possibilities like Jack pulling his own breathing tubes and causing himself to pass in 2006, he might have been able to do something like that. But again, all he had to do was pull a tube, not apply some type of damage to himself.
Yeah.
That is fairly, that's fairly heinous. I don't know of anybody who personally do that. All right, so let's see, Southwestern Bell. So now we're also going to start seeing the introduction of a cell phone. So this number, 210-303-4747, comes into play with me being able to track Jack throughout the rest of this year based on where he's at, because it actually gets to tell you place called and where they're calling to and where they're going to. So we're going to see a little bit of that in here, and that's as of August 15th, 1996. Now, I don't know a lot of people who could afford to have a cell phone during those days, so I'm still kind of boggled with Jack not even barely making disability because he's not getting it. We just saw that he is still waiting and still trying to get his state disability for not being able to work. Yet we see him owning a cell phone. Again,
I know that in 1996, my mom did not have a cell phone.
I know my parents didn't.
No.
You had a pager. I think it was a pager that was going on, right?
I think the first thing that I seen my aunt even have back then was a car phone.
And those things were gigantic. They were bricks.
Yes, they were.
So that's basically where we have Jack. Jack is actually in Texas. So is this particular routier murder, you said, in Texas as well? Did you have the town?
It's yep. It was. Oh, I just beat the horn. I'll tell you real quick.
Oh, town of Rolette. I will check to see where that is and play with Seguin and Dale, Texas. Yes. And keep in mind that I also think that there is about a 2 to 2.5 hour proximity in which the Zodiac would have operated in if Jack, being that person from South Lake Tahoe, was still doing some killings in the Bay Area. That's about the 2.5 hour out time frame. So even anything that is occurring within about 2 to 2.5 hour time frame in Texas, I believe that proximity is still good for Jack.
Yeah.
All right, so that brings us to, I found all of these different computer commands. So this again shows the innate ability to program and to work with the computer system that most people were not even privy to, let alone know how to actually put in the proper DOS commands in order to get the stuff that they wanted. So,
and then you have that husband of that circuit that creates circuit boards. If anyone doesn't know what a circuit board is, it's a computer keyboard.
Right.
And it's like, and it controls the circuit board inside the computer.
And here we go. We've got all of these. And let's see this is actually dated July 16th, 1996. This testware program is to be used only for testing purposes. Use this release with caution and back up your data regularly. So evidently he's either beta testing something. And how do you get in on that? I mean, I'm astonished with what Jack has and can do and what he knows and what he's a part of. So on July 15th of 1996, I found a picture of Jack's brother, Don, and Eileen, but I couldn't tell whether or not they were in Texas or if Jack was back in California because Jack traveled back and forth so much. We know that Don, I believe it during this time, was in Roseville, California, and lived out basically his life in Roseville, California. To my knowledge, or at least the information that I show, that's the last place I had him. So this could either be a picture of him visiting Jack in Texas or Jack visiting him back in California. I just couldn't actually find the picture. I was looking for it this week. On July 17th of 1996, we had the new address for Jack at the 800 Nelda Street, number 20, Seguin, Texas. And it's consistent with billings are found through September 23rd of 1996. So this address, at least based on mail and bills, we know this is where Jack is purportedly at. There are more random calls to Boulder, Colorado. I'm finding them every week or two within the statements. And we're going to talk about, we'll come across that other number that I think may possibly have been a calling in to check the time. But that last number that I just read off certainly wasn't. So it would be interesting to note who he's calling in Boulder, Colorado. And why? Why did Jack keep 1993 and 1996 diaries of Nora? Clearly, she was known to write in a diary. Why just these 2 years? The one that puts him in Arizona, where he's at Arizona University, and Purina Mills, and then the 1996 one that clearly shows that he was not with the family in California for at least a solid month between the end of November and Christmas of December. So,
well, and if you didn't have all these phone records and things, you still would have her diary to pinpoint him that he wasn't in California.
Yeah, he wasn't there, but the diary would have only told us that he had purportedly gone back to Texas to take care of his mom again. But once again, she's in a nursing home. How much care can you be providing when the nurses and doctors are there taking care of her? You could be there to visit, and we know he loved his mom.
But you don't live in an area just to live there, just to go visit every now and then.
Right. So on September 3rd of 1996, here are some more. Oh, this is the phone number. So on September 3rd of 1996, there's another call made to Boulder, Colorado. It's a 303-494-4774. I wrote down possibly checking time just because I knew that Jack was infatuated with the atomic clock and the accuracy of time, and that comes out of Boulder, Colorado. I'm not sure that this number actively goes to that. I didn't actually try to call it, and maybe I should have. I just assumed anything that old is probably not working anymore, but if it is for time, it would probably still be good.
But I have a system that I use for to look things up, and so I can plug that number in there, and it will tell me even if that number doesn't work anymore, or if it was even if it was given to someone, like, which normally they do, it would still tell me that all the background information of whoever had any connection to that number. It goes all the way back to the beginning of when the number was created. So, I mean,
Really?
oh yeah, I'll be able to see who had that number.
Oh, that would be extremely interesting. So we have both of those Colorado numbers that, we're already at the end of this time. I guess I tried to send that email to Nolan and it didn't make it too. So maybe now I'm having an issue with.
Let me see if
I don't
can
know.
send it to him.
That is just weird. All in all.
That is so weird. Well, and like right now, they brought up the Jon Benet case again this year, and they have stated a couple of times, we're determined we're going to solve it this year, and that was just kind of weird. How are you going to know that you're going to solve it right this year?
Right.
You don't know that, so
no. Oh, that's what they're saying in the rhetoric, is that they're going to solve it this year?
That's what the rhetoric is pointing to. Is like, we're determined this is going to be the year we're going to solve it. You know how they do, and then it's just kind of like a prologue to what their little plan is already, kind of like.
Oh yeah, they're setting us up for what they want us.
Yeah,
and they're going to solve. This will be great. This will be interesting to see what they come up with.
Mm-hmm.
So back to this one. On September 13th of 1996, I have a receipt with Jack's address on Nelda Street, but it's for a Gerald Tarns. So we've got a different person listed at.
What did you say?
Gerald Tarns.
How do you Tarnes?
Tarns is what I had down. Gerald Tarns. And Gerald is spelled Jerl. It's listed at the Seguin address, and it is addressing the 87 Suburban that I had in Jack's name. It looks like they're checking for AC, Freon level. But why is the ticket in Gerald Tarns' name when we know that Jack owns it? And then when I looked at the signature of Jack Terrence down here on the bottom, this is not Jack's signature. So this is somebody else signing.
Oh, I can just glance at that and tell that's not his signature.
Yeah, that's not his signature at all.
He's way more slanted.
And so what? Well, and it's leftward slanted almost. I mean, with these things are kind of going backwards.
Yeah, my dad and my brother are left-handed, and that definitely does look like a left-hander, kind of like.
I'm a left-hander, but sometimes it's a choice for them to write with that leftward slant. And typically speaking, any type of a leftward trend in graphology means that you're clinging to the past, either due to lack of nurture or afraid of moving forward. So left-handedness doesn't technically determine whether or not we're going to have a leftward slant. It is definitely a choice because you're taught to write forward with a rightward. So that's a very interesting concept. But I myself, as a left-handed person, I write fairly perpendicular, and I do not curve my hand over, as you've probably seen your family members do. Being a left-handed writer, I actually, so I'm perpendicular. I'm straight up and down, basically, and I do not wrap my hand because I don't like running my hand through ink. It's gross.
Yeah. Well, and I can verify what you're saying too. Also, on the other hand, because I actually work with two people, which I've never worked with two left-handed people before in the same building, but they actually I never even knew that they were left-handed, because usually you can tell. And I seen their writing when I first started with them, and I was like, wow, you're left-handed? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, both of y'all are left-handed, and I'm seeing y'all's writing, and it doesn't look like a left-handed at all. So, so you're definitely right about that, for sure.
Yeah. So I try not to determine handedness, age, and gender when it comes to handwriting, because you can be ultimately wrong. Well, Nolan, it's good to have you here.
Hey, better late than never.
I know. We almost made it into Jon Benet Ramsey. We are at September of 1996 at this point, and of course, we're down to the final minutes or so, 2 minutes probably that we've got left here of the show. And we've just been talking about the moving of Jack. So we had Jack move back to Texas, supposedly to take care of his mom, and then Nora went to Washington. So we see all these phone calls to Washington, which is likely Jack attempting to contact Nora there while he's in Texas. this, but we see him bouncing back between two addresses, and we see that there are payments to a nursing home for his mom. So he really didn't go back to take care of his mom if his mom was in a nursing home. I'm finding things to be a little off, a little strange here.
He had other intentions.
Yeah, and lots of phone calls to Boulder, Colorado. And now that we've established that Nora is in Washington with Mary and Rick, we know that Mary and Rick are not in Colorado. So the phone calls that are taking place to Colorado are not to family members, to my knowledge at this point. But we do see that he is actively using a cell phone. He's doing some type of a beta test program for computer software, in which case it's giving him commands and how to work the program. There's a lot of things that are going on right now in 1996 for Jack that most of the average public did not have access to.
Yeah.
Okay, real quick before we get off the air, I watched on the History Channel Unexplained Mysteries. They had a segment on D.B. Cooper, and the theory on this one was that this may have been a CIA black op, just
100%.
experimental, just to see if they
100.
can do it.
100. Well, they were doing
Wow,
all
I can't
kinds of
believe they actually said
hijackings.
that.
They were doing all kinds of hijackings at this time. So why did the CIA need to, test whether or not it could possibly be done? But it's not too far off the mark for what I think that Jack was involved with.
Mm-hmm.
Right, he was part of a team,
Bigger operation. Yeah, bigger operation. And as we play, wait till I show you guys the handwriting in Jon Benet Ramsey letter and what really solidified the fact that I think that Jack could have been involved with it. He may not have been the murderer, but he definitely wrote this letter in my mind.
Yeah.
Okay. But also, last point, the jet that was involved in D.B. Cooper was a jet that the CIA used during Vietnam.
Go figure.
Wow.
So anyone, with military experience knows that you can jump out, parachute out of that plane, and you could lower the back
and land safely
or whatever they do,
all right,
and jump out without harming anyone in the plane itself.
We're going to pick back up on this next week. We've already ran out of time, Nolan. I'm sorry that I didn't get you on until just now, but we'll see you guys next Friday. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and have a wonderful weekend.
Hi, everybody. Sorry.